India's Gen Z cockroaches are on the march and rising up, and the government is fighting back. Thousands of outraged young people are protesting right outside Parliament. They say they want the education system fixed and the Prime Minister Modi to resign. After claims an Indian judge called them parasites. So how has a movement that started as an online joke gained millions of followers and disrupted Indian politics?
We want कि छात्रों की बात सुनी जाए, क्योंकि अब पानी जो है सर से ऊपर से निकल चुका है.
And what do these protesters actually want? Here's the breakdown.
There are youngsters like cockroaches. They don't get any employment. They don't have any place in profession.
This is how it all started. An Indian judge compared the country's young people to cockroaches. The young people didn't just fight back, they embraced their new nickname. An online movement started with an AI-generated cockroach as its mascot, and then it went viral on social media. The Cockroach Janta Party's Instagram page boomed, attracting 3 million followers in the first 72 hours, then overtaking the Prime Minister's party, which had 9 million, and now they're sitting at more than 24 million followers. The CJP's leader is this guy, Abhijit Dipke. He once worked for an opposition party and studied PR in America, and he's now bringing thousands of online followers to the streets of his home country. They want change in jobs and education.
I'm hoping to be here as long as there is accountability on this.
40% of India's graduates below the age of 25 are unemployed, and millions of students were forced to resit their exams when question papers were leaked.
मैं इसीलिए आई हूँ कि जब ये सड़ा हुआ सिस्टम एक्शन नहीं ले रहा है, उनको बच्चों का दर्द नहीं दिखाई दे रहा है.
More than 20 students have died by suicide since the scandal, according to reports.
The education minister is sitting at his position despite the death of 20 students. I think that is the far bigger illegal thing to do. We are just sitting here peacefully demanding justice for the students.
The government has said it's taken steps to prevent future paper leaks and will punish those responsible. Over the weekend, police used violence, including tear gas and batons, to stop marchers who are now calling for the PM, Narendra Modi, to resign.
पीसफुल मार्च कर रहे हैं, कुछ भी गलत नहीं कर रहे, कोई हमारे हाथ में कोई सामान नहीं, कोई हथियार नहीं, हम सीधा आगे आगे जा रहे थे, पुलिस ने धक्का मुक्की करना स्टार्ट कर दी और आंसू गैस के गोले दागने शुरू कर दिए.
There was an unlawful assembly जिसको डील किया गया, कुछ स्टोन पेल्टिंग के इंसिडेंट्स हुए हैं, कुछ protesters को दिल्ली पुलिस ने डिटेन भी किया, appropriate action लिया जा रहा है.
Tensions were heightened when a prominent anti-government campaigner on hunger strike was forcibly taken to hospital.
सोनम सर को घसीट कर गाली गलौज करके लेकर गए. 60 साल से जो इंसान है, जो भूख हड़ताल पर बैठा हुआ था 20 दिनों से, 60 साल के इंसान को जो 20 दिनों से भूखा था, उसको दिल्ली पुलिस गाली गलौज करके.
Both sides did try and meet for talks, and the government said it went well. The CJP, though, weren't impressed.
Waste of time, 5 घंटे में बिठा के रखा.
The Cockroach Janta Party isn't actually a political party yet, but it's already being seen as one of the biggest challenges facing the Indian government in recent times. So this cockroach party has exploded in popularity in a matter of weeks, and the government now seems to be taking it very seriously. There's even been claims that access to the group's website was blocked in India. So what's next for the Cockroach Party? If it becomes official, could it actually compete as a political party? And if not, how does this all get resolved? To help answer these questions, I'm going to bring in Siddiq Wahid. He's a historian and political analyst in India. Siddiq Wahid, thank you so much for speaking to us. Firstly, I've got to ask you, how did this all get started?
Well, I think it got started in a rather volatile way because the Chief Justice of India described protesters who were unemployed, frustrated, and angry with the leak of a All India exam for entrance into universities and colleges and so forth. He described the people who were angry at that and protesting as cockroaches. And as a result, someone who was from India in the United States studying, I believe, Abhishek Dipke, decided that he would take that name on and describe all the protesters as cockroaches. And I think informally called it the Cockroach Party, whatever, the Cockroach Janta Party or the Cockroach People's Party. And that's how the name came up.
Why
Yes.
were they called cockroaches and they didn't take on lions, tigers, or some other animal?
That was largely because the description was used by the opposition, in this case, the Chief Justice of India, who was, I think, it was perceived that he was taking the side of the government rather than the call for justice on the part of the students. And so it was shall we say, satirical take on of the name. And said, okay, so then we are cockroaches and we will protest on that basis.
And this has gone viral in a massive way. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's captured the hearts of Gen Z in India?
Well, I think because in one sense, it was a demeaning term that had been used of them, and I think that there was a propensity to take it on and not resist it. Number one, and number two, it was at the sort of like a build-up of anger towards this pattern, and it was a pattern over several years of exam papers being leaked into the public, nullifying the efforts of study, etc., on the part of students all over India, and trying to suggest that this was done in order to further corruption or something of that nature. And so, therefore, I think it was a combination of anger, a satirical take on of a name, as well as deep frustration with sort of a level of corruption that I think history will probably classify as being somewhat unique and unprecedented.
What is it like to be a younger person in India? What kind of opportunities are there at the moment? We've seen that unemployment is around 40%. It must be hard.
It is very hard. And I think you'll have to ask a person younger than I at this point, as to how they feel. But I mean, it's not rocket science to see how they must feel as to having no future. India is not unknown for talent. I think the world over, Indians are in key positions. But it is frustrating when you don't see a future for yourself, in this. And so that's one. The other is that it tends to be the underprivileged and those who are, sort of on the margins of society from an economic point of view, who feel it the most, because they are. I mean, their whole aim in life is to prove something, that they can do it. That it's not money, that it's not ancestry, that it's not privilege, that's not access to officials. That's the only factor, and that in a democracy where they are given the expectation that if they work hard, they can make it. When they see that eroding, when they see that passing away, or going past them, I think it's heartbreaking.
When that message no longer exists, right? If you work hard, you will get somewhere.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, not very long ago, I was in Delhi and I was at the site of the protests, and it was really heartbreaking to see the passion with which they were talking, and very peacefully, protesting, but with huge clarity. as to what it is that they want, and what they want is access, equal access to education, and to entering examinations, and being given a chance. And when that is taken away, I really don't know what it feels like. And I wouldn't even try to describe it, but it is very difficult to witness that, as I did in that crowd on that particular evening.
What about the guy that has set this all off then? What do you know about
Yes.
him?
Not very much, I must say. I know that he was a student in Boston in the United States, and he tweeted this or X'd this or whatever.
I don't know what the term is anymore.
Yeah, it just sort of went on a roll and really picked up very fast. And I must say, to his credit, rather than shy away from being in India at this time, he came, and there was quite a bit of a hullabaloo when he came, to Delhi, because they expected him to be arrested and so forth. He wasn't arrested. He was allowed, in fact, to go to the protest site and protest and so forth. So I think that is sort of he's obviously given this a momentum. But I think it's important to recognize that in the last month, and that was almost exactly the last month, because it began on the 20th of June, it has gone way beyond personalities. It has, and it is now really something. It's a, I mean, it may be too early to call it a movement, but it's a spark, that has set a lot of backs up, and people are starting to question much more openly, much more radically, the issues of accountability in government, and the issues of needing to be heard, and not just asking to be heard, but demanding to be heard. And also, I think getting onto the game, if that's the right expression, of, sort of like the government demonizing people who oppose it, and oppose its policies, not just oppose it, but oppose its policies. And I think that, that sort of gives some of us, a little bit of hope, is that maybe, there is something developing here which will have an impact.
You said some people's backs have been put up by this. Are you talking about the government? What has their response been so far?
Well, I mean, for the longest time, there was no response. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, I think for a long time, there was no response. Once the the protests got rolling, then police were put out. But at the same time, it was the protests were permitted, to take place, which was a bit, I must admit, which was a bit of a surprise for me. But it also meant that the government perhaps knew something that we in the general public didn't know, and that was that there was some depth, there was some, shall we say, speed, to this movement that was starting to take place. And I think those are things that go through the mind. I mean, still early days. I think 1 month is not much in the context of history, in the long run. But I think so there was maybe some recognition of something that is going on. But now, what is different now is that I think the accusations against the government and the attacks on individuals within the government are very sharp, very clear, and also, I must say, at the same time, respectful. So that says a lot, I think, for the overall atmosphere that's, igniting, shall we say.
We should say that one of Modi's cabinet ministers today said the Prime Minister has vowed to punish those behind the exam paper leaks and that re-examination was given priority. The protesters want the Education Minister to step down and resign. Some have
Yes.
called for Narendra Modi himself, the Prime Minister,
Yes.
to resign. How
Right.
likely do you think any of those people are to step down from government?
Right. Well, I mean, I think we do live in authoritarian times, and so the likelihood of that happening, I don't think, is very high, But it is an indication of the level of frustration. It is an indication of, how strongly people feel that they would risk saying it on camera, loud and clear, and not worry about the consequences.
You smile when you say that. Why are you smiling?
Well, it's good to see some pushback from youth, and some sense of not fearing power in youth, I must say. I mean, I'm a child of the 70s, when we grow up, and protest was like second nature, to it. And then you would go. But we are seeing less and less and less of it in India, and in, various parts all over the country, in various parts of it. So when this comes, it's heartening. It's heartbreaking as well. So there's a mix of emotions, I must say. I mean,
We saw Gen Z protests in Nepal and Bangladesh recently, and they have had really successful outcomes, or relatively successful outcomes. How do you think this compares?
It's a good question. It's a very difficult question because, when you compare the populations, Nepal is what, about 28 million, 30 million people, and Bangladesh is 200 million. But in India, you're talking about 1.4 billion people. I mean, so the impact of what is going to happen in India is not going to be just for India. It's going to be all of South Asia, which is 2 billion people of the world's population. And that's a quarter of the world's population. That's not a small number. I think that spells trouble for the world at large. So I think that it's very difficult to compare what happens in Nepal and in Bangladesh or in Sri Lanka a little bit earlier than that, to what is happening in India. In some way, things take a lot longer in India for the ripple effects to take effect. In fact, we've not seen anything that can be called an all India ripple effect on the part of the people, at least, in our entire 78 years of independence, So I don't know. I mean, I don't know that we can compare at all. We just have to wait and see. There are too many moving parts in India at the moment. I mean, not just at the moment, but all over, all the time. Yeah.
I have seen reports that the government was blocking the Cockroach Party WhatsApp and websites. Have you
Yes.
seen that?
I've not witnessed it myself, even though when I was at the site, I don't think, I was not looking at my phone, quite frankly. So I don't know whether it happened or not happened, but it's a completely credible thing that it might have happened, at least around the site, within a radius of, say, half a mile or something. And I wouldn't put it past the government. It's not as if the government hasn't done that. It's done that to entire parts of the country, entire states, within the country and so forth. So I think that it is not. But social media and with all the difficulties it represents, also presents facility. So you go back home and you tweet, or X or whatever, you go back home, you go back to your, because in this protest, several people from other parts of the country have come, so you go back to your, home state or whatever, and then you can tweet again, So it is, I mean, so it's going to be interesting to see what social media does also in the near
We're
future.
seeing just now that the party has gone to 24 million followers on Instagram. So they're growing and growing. They're actually not a political party yet. Do you think that they will be soon?
Hard to say, because of the mix that is already visible in the quote unquote party, that we refer to. I think if it does, it would take some phenomenal organizing, to take place. I don't know that there is one in place. As I said, the personality cult within the cockroach, party, I think has sort of, taken a back seat almost, because it is actually the people, the Gen Z, if you will, or, the younger set who have come to the forefront and begun to, voice themselves harder. So I don't know. Will it develop into a collective leadership of some sort, or will an individual emerge? Who will be able to organize and sort of forward the agenda. And first of all, will it formulate a strategic agenda as opposed to a tactical agenda? A tactical agenda being, for example, having the education minister resign and not leave until the education minister resigns. Well, if that's the only part of the strategy, then of course, if and when the education minister resigns, what happens next? What does that mean? All those questions will come up. So I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether there is a will to form a party, or is it there a will just to resist? And the name party the word party in the name is an accidental sort of, development. I don't know. I mean, these are valid questions. Yeah.
And just one other question. We're seeing violence on the streets now with protesters and police. What's your sense of how this ends?
I'm afraid I'm going to resort to an honest answer, which is I don't know. You just referred to violence on the part of the protesters and on the part of the police. I must confess that I have been watching it fairly carefully, although I'm not much of a social media, I'm very active on social media, shall we say, and things. But I've been watching the videos that are coming through and so forth. I haven't seen violence on the part of the protesters. Of any kind, in fact. But, one may miss one or two. And I cannot imagine that if there were protesters engaging in violence, that it would not be on social media. So I don't know. I mean, again, and so as to, how this is going to end, I hope not violently. Either for the protesters or for those who are trying to, sort of contain the protests, the police or paramilitary forces, whoever they are, that it will not end up with violence. I think that's something that in a population of 1.4 billion, where there are 24 million involved at one go, at least on social media, 24 million. But what it will mean for pockets of physical resistance that come about either in the way of protests, rallies, etc. I can't imagine what it would look like, but it wouldn't be pretty. So I think that we all have to hope that it doesn't take a violent turn on both sides.
Siddiq Wahid, it's been great to talk to you and get your insights on the Cockroach Party. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Take care.
That's the breakdown. Thanks for watching. See you next time.